Good evening, and welcome to the Good, Bad, or Bullshit podcast, where we discuss random topics, have a conversation about that topic, and then provide a verdict. Verdict being good, bad, or bullshit. Hence the name. My name is Mike, one of your three hosts on this show, along with Mr. Bo Schwartz, who's lately a wizard,
Yeah, lately I've been studying the magical arts
the
and
the dark arts,
I've learned things, and maybe I'll share a few of those secrets on the show. Hello.
the dark arts. So Bo Schwartz, practitioner of dark arts, and Crofton Steers, practitioner of bureaucratic arts.
There you go. You found it.
I was wondering where you were going to go with that. I'll take it. Hello, gentlemen.
He's a high lord in the bureaucratic recesses of our government.
I don't normally like to go into how the sausage is made when talking about this show because people just assume it's magic. But I will tell you that this episode, I feel, really encapsulated how we start a show. So Crofton is very skittish with what time he's going to start due to the fact that his child won't go to sleep. And he's got a baby and a toddler to manage. Mike is unresponsive to messaging. Bo then indicates that he is only ready to go at certain intervals because he's playing games that last a certain amount of time. Then we all get ready to go, and Bo updates Skype. It fails. We all get screwed up, and we have to install a new program, which we then spend an hour screwing with. So all of that to bring you this wonderful show.
You're just mad because you spend no time outside of recording the show doing any work, and then you actually had to spend some time working.
It's like I didn't just sit down and direct.
Podcasts just appear in the universe, and I am on them.
I'm curious what the first, like the fastest we've ever got into an episode is, because I feel like our average time from sitting down and putting on the headphones to actually recording is at least a half hour.
Yeah, I was gonna say 45 minutes probably.
Yeah, this is probably one of the longest for sure.
We had a little digression about Takeshi 6ix9ine.
Yeah, you're complaining, but that whole time I was like, if Crofton could just sit there and not speak, I'd be able to speak to Mike and offer suggestions on his tech issue. So.
I just don't understand Kendrick Lamar. What do you want?
Well, and how? Yeah, honestly, there's no other way I'm going to learn about rap trends other than talking with Bo Schwartz because it's not going to happen any other way.
It's true. Takeshi 6ix9ine, he's the new hotness that's around the corner. When you're hearing about him a few months from now, being huge and wondering why because you can't stand him.
I will be wondering. Like, I still am kind of wondering why Drake's so big. I don't still really get it.
Well, he's catchy.
He's charming. He's got a nice flow. I don't find that catchy. And I still find the key thing that I don't like about Drake is the way he says "you." I just hate it so much. You. When you say "you," I'm just like I can't listen. Is that what it sounds like?
It's awful.
It sounds like you're doing like the Matt Stone or Trey Parker version of
you.
I hate the way he sounds. He sounds exactly like you. You.
Not a fan. That's all I say. I mean, more power to him. He's doing well. People like him. Great. Yeah. But not my cup of tea.
I like Drake. As the rap
That's okay.
people
Same with Takeshi 6ix9ine.
Rappers say when they like something, they say I fucks with it. They're like, do you like Kendrick Lamar? And the rap be like, yeah, I fucks with it. That's how you say you like something.
Good to know.
You fuck with it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Look, I told you guys before the show, I would love to know both what like guys like Childish Gambino or Kendrick Lamar like are so popular and profound in the messages they're putting out, but it's just like it's going over my head like entirely. And I honestly would love to understand, but I just don't. I'm listening. I'm like, I don't get it. It's tough being old.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but you're never. I mean, face it. You guys aren't really super into rap to begin with, so it's.
No,
but if you like a rap song you hear, you'd be like, cool. But like, you're not like. You're not deep into the side cult. Like, you don't want... who are the members of the Wu-Tang Clan?
Wait. Okay, let me go first.
Ghostface Killer.
Oh.
The RZA?
Oh, we got two.
Okay, wait. Method Man.
Oh, there's 3.
Okay.
Hey, that's good.
Wait, what do we got? Is it the Jizza one?
Yes, the Jizza is one.
Oh, the RZA, the
It's the
Jizza, the
Jizza Genius.
Ghostface Killer.
The
Did we say
RZA,
Ghostface
the
Killer?
Jizza, we said Ghostface Killer.
So how many are we missing?
Wait, there's a 4th one. You said Method Man. So you got Meth.
Oh yeah.
You got RZA, Jizza, and you
I got
got
one.
Ghostface
Croft
Killer.
got 3.
That's
So
4.
are we,
There's quite a few left.
how many are left? Is Red Man in them?
Puff Daddy.
Redman incorrect. Puff Daddy incorrect. There's I want to say 5 or 6 left. I think there's
No
9,
way.
9
Is
members.
one of the ice guy. Ice.
The ice
The
guy.
Ice Guys. Oh my God, we should end this now.
No,
This isn't going on the internet, is it?
Yeah, it is. This is great.
Oh,
What's the ice guy? The vanilla ice.
Cube or iced tea? I just know. I'm not talking. No one's talking about vanilla ice. Clearly,
Look, this is about Crofton. He was taking exception to the fact that I said his knowledge was limited on a subject, and his ego was
I'm
like,
not saying. Look, it is limited. It is limited, but I would argue that now it's reached a point where, like, if you look at the Billboard Top 100, I'm a pop culture aficionado a little bit, and like it's the top of the pop culture. It's more popular. At one point, rock and pop had their moment. Now it's hip hop and rap. And so for me to understand why, like, Donald Glover's This Is America has 350 million views on YouTube, I just like. I don't get it, and I would like to get it.
Also, like Lemonade, you should be into Beyonce.
Oh man, Lemonade is a good Gucci Mane song that I just discovered this week from like years ago. Anyways, I know you're going with the
I've always
Beyonce,
prided
but
myself with being out of touch, so I don't feel too bad.
yeah, we know that.
Just who I am, who I've always
But just for the people playing along at home, because we asked an intense trivia question and you guys appear to have given up on it. The ones you're missing are Old Dirty Bastard, rest in peace.
Oh, I would have got that one.
I'm the Old Dirty Bastard from the Brooklyn Zoo.
I would have got that one. Okay, keep going.
I fuck a trunk of bitches. That's what he would say. Old Dirty Bastard. You've got Master Killer. He's more of a sideline guy. You wouldn't have got.
Would not have got him. No.
You God is another one. The letter U dash God. Inspected Deck.
Oh, I would have got Inspected Deck.
Or AKA
eventually
the Rebel INS. Don't know what it means.
So my brother was really into Wu-Tang because he's white and lives in sort of suburbia. Well, I guess. So he had all sorts of Wu-Tang CDs. So I know from the covers of them a bunch of these guys. But
there's one more. You might know this one because he had a classic album back when they were big. It's the Chef Raekwon, or Raekwon the Chef.
The name rings a bell.
I think I've got them all too. I know they have a recurring side member appears a lot. It's Capadonna. You might have gotten that one.
So the RZA is the good one though, right? If I'm to remember what does the most good stuff.
The RZA is the one who's like done movies and done movie soundtracks. Notably, the Kill Bill soundtrack was done by the RZA. He's a music producer, but he raps too.
I'll
sort
just
of like Dr. Dre, right?
I'll remember the RZA.
Yeah.
Huh? Both? Dr. Dre?
Not a Wu-Tang Clan member, but a rapper. So congratulations on getting that right.
I gotta research them so that I can introduce us during one of my intros as members of the Wu-Tang Clan, and they make sort of hilarious sense, right?
I'm definitely getting labeled ODB for sure.
What's that mean?
Old Dirty Bastard.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But I feel like Bo would be the best rapper. I know, Crofton, you're narcissistic.
Oh!
It's true.
No, Bo would be the best rapper.
He's good. He makes good music.
I would just be the most popular one.
Who would be the most popular one?
Me.
No.
You would be the master killer of the.
Well. Do we want to give verdicts on Wu-Tang Clan?
We could do an episode on Wu-Tang. It's 9 minutes into the show. We've derailed, but this was just too much fun. I love talking about rap music with these guys because they know nothing and it amuses me to no end. So
I just like when we derail this badly, I often like to think of his brother Richard, who sometimes listens to this podcast and is always like, "Why don't you guys get to the topic in time? It takes forever."
Don't diss our listeners. Jeez, sorry.
When I diss them by name.
This is not a rap album. We are not trying to make podcast beef on this show.
Though my brother probably would have named at least many of the members of Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah, I think your brother would have gotten that. I don't know. Master Kill is a tough one to get because he's definitely the least known of them, I would say.
Oh,
Yeah.
question, Bo. Are any of them dead? There is one, right? That's at least
Do
dead.
you know which one it is?
Oh, wait. Is it Inspector whatever?
Inspector Deck? No.
Yes. Are you sure he's not dead?
Not dead. But there is one that's dead. The rest of them are alive. As far as I know.
Is it Method Man?
It's not meth. Move it on your
Ghostface Killer?
left. Not Ghostface Killer. In fact, I would say he's got the biggest body of work out of all of them. I love me some Tony Starks.
So
His name's Tony Stark?
That's his AKA. I'm the Ghostface Killer, AKA Tony Starks. And He's got an album called Iron Man. And he even had a he shot a cameo somewhere actually in one of the Iron Man films. In the first one.
Who is the dead one?
How do you not know this? Old dirty bastard.
Didn't I say?
Oh, makes sense.
You
He's
did
the
not
oldest.
say. You said, "Is it the inspector?" Whatever. Verbatim.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Old dirty bastard.
How about
that
the
makes
one
sense.
that has sex and raps about getting chlamydia and being like, "Oh shit, that sucks." How about that one?
I feel that I'm letting down all my craftaholics that are big into hip hop today.
Yeah.
I'm
Sure used to it. Speaking of things our listeners are used to, aside from being disappointed, we should get to a random topic.
Oh, that was a good segue. Jeez.
Okay. The topic today is taxi services.
Oh. Okay.
So does
This
that
include Uber?
Okay.
Is that a taxi service?
I don't feel like it would have been that broad. Didn't include Uber.
Yeah, it's just because like Uber is like I guess a business model as is Lyft and all that to disrupt the old kind of.
Yeah, it's still taxi for the new age, but I think they shy away from the actual word taxi from a branding perspective. I don't think it says taxi anywhere on their stuff.
Yeah, it's a taxi service. I mean, you could, because you wouldn't call it a car service, because I think car service implies something sort of different.
It's a ride. I think ride is the term of art that they use for
Whatever.
I'm gonna
It's
get
thing.
an Uber
it's like
ride.
A taxi.
I'm going to the the red light district to get an Uber ride.
So are you guys like? Do you use it? Do you use Uber, Lyft, or taxis on a regular or semi-regular basis, or not at all?
I've been using taxis on a regular-ish basis, so I have opinions, I guess.
Why don't you use Uber? Of all people, I would thought you would have been all over Uber.
The problem is, I don't have a credit card. I do now, but I have a pre-authorized credit card. So I can't really make purchases in the Apple Store without like a gift card or something stupid like that. Although, finally, I just realized this as you asked, that Apple has updated their policy to use your PayPal, which actually helps me immensely. Now, the other issue is I don't have cell service. I mean, I do have a Pay and Talk, but I have like $10 in it at all times.
That's
so
true.
I can't actually conveniently use an Uber. But technically speaking, I could be using it from my home because I'm on Wi-Fi, I think. So, yeah.
But
I've been using the taxi, not the Uber.
At some point, Bowie, you're gonna have to get back on to this, like, using, because like 5G is about to come online. You're so tech savvy. The fact that you don't have this is kind of shocking.
It's funny
to me.
because like I don't really have real cell service, but I just finished installing backup internet. So
yeah, you pay like $200 a month in internet.
No. My backup internet's $20 a month. It's like cheap. Make sure I have internet if one goes out. By the way, my internet went out for 3 days because a truck with a caterpillar on the back clipped the wire and just didn't tell anybody. So the wire, like, I'm like, I just installed the damn stuff and they're already clipping it down with a big truck. That's annoying.
And also, if he's gotten off, like, imagine I imagine if I'd wean myself out of constant cell usage, it's like quitting smoking. It's like, don't get back on it. If you can get by without it and you're used to it, I mean, like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like I have internet access at work. I have it at home. The only time I kind of miss it, I think, is if I have to be out and about for a long period of time, like travel, like at the airport. I mean, airport has Wi-Fi, so I actually have it there. It's like literally on a bus or a taxi or at someone's house has Wi-Fi. Like, there's a lot of places, and a lot of places I go to have Wi-Fi available, so I don't actually miss it that much, and I don't call anyone on my phone. So yeah, it would make Uber convenient.
You don't need the phone for phone stuff, but like I think of like I happened to be riding the bus today, and I was like, oh, I'll play some Hearthstone, because I have LTE or whatever, like good connection. It's like it's fun. I mean, you for like a gaming person, I thought you'd be like, yeah, why not? But I guess it does cost, phone, it's not cheap.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't game on my phone.
You used
anyway,
to call
so
me
not on Uber, uses taxis sometimes.
You used to call me on my cell phone.
There you go. But I use the taxi, so we can compare. Do you guys use Uber at any amount? I think you do, Crofton, right?
Oh, I do fairly regularly use Uber. So I bike to work. If it's raining, I'll take an Uber. On the way, if it's going to rain later on, I will bike in. I don't mind getting wet on the way back. So I take Uber there. I take taxis often with work, because it's part of like how work is set up for if you're traveling between office buildings. But I haven't, I think Lyft just came to Canada or whatever. I haven't used that that much. I mean, I got my license late in life, right? Like, and Bo still doesn't have his, to my knowledge, but like I got mine like in my 30s. Without taxis, I don't know what I would have done. I always felt when I was a teenager that they were super expensive. I couldn't like $20 for a ride or whatever. Like, it just seemed, crazy. As an adult, it's definitely more manageable. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is fine for going this distance or whatever. Uber, I feel, made things more affordable, but now I find it's comparable. Like, to get from my house to work, it costs $15 Uber when it's not surge. But generally, when I want to use it, it is surge pricing, which, for those who are not familiar, is when Uber detects that there's not enough cars in an area, they just jack the prices.
So you pay $15 to go one way to work?
Yeah.
Every day. So you might pay $30. But you only use it one way, probably.
I generally only use it one way. Like, I'll take the bus home. Yeah. And I'll only use it when it's raining. So once a week, maybe, and we've had almost no rain this summer, so I haven't used it much. But I will say that Uber, like, when it came to Canada and in the States, was a huge disruptor. Was the Wild West, had dirty low rates, like crazy low. And now things are getting regulated. Rates have gone up. It's more similar to taxi. I use it more now due to the convenience factor. Like the app on the phone, I can see where the cars are, the time, everything works so seamlessly and all that. So I like it. So I use them. I use taxi services, but Uber, when I started with Uber, I started looking at the old taxis, almost like looking down on them. First off, they were super. I always felt that taxis were expensive, but also I found like the Uber drivers were trying to make their cars smell nice, and they're like, "Would you like a bottle of water, sir?" and all this sort of stuff to try to increase value. Whereas the taxi drivers, because taxis are like a cartel in Canada, like
totally cartel.
Yeah, your taxi license goes to like your next of kin or something, and there's a limited supply of them controlled by the city and so forth and so on. I don't know if it's like that everywhere, but it is here.
It's definitely like that here. Yeah. So that's interesting. So $15 to go into work, that probably seems like the right price. It's funny because that's how much it would have cost me to go from where I was to like where I go into work, which is probably a little bit closer than
like. Yeah, I find like $15. It seems pricey to me because like paying to park your car all day costs like $12 downtown. Maybe it's gone up. So I'm like, and then you don't have to pay the bus fare coming back. And so unless that's really inconvenient to drive your own car there, because
in my case, and you're right about that. It's $12 for me. There's the inconvenience factor, and then there's the like walking from your car. So like if I'm rushing to work, which I probably am if I'm taking Uber, then I got to add 10 minutes if I was driving for like walking. And the biggest thing is I want to be a one car family tops, and my wife needs to have the car at home in case there's any sort of issue. She's on mat leave and that sort of stuff. So I can't take the car. So.
Well, yeah, fair enough. I mean, I'll just weigh in with my experience on taxis, which I have almost never used. I can think maybe twice I've used one at an airport, when I felt like there was no other solution, and when I had to use them for work, and usually with the work ones was because I was going to some other office with other people who refused to either walk, bike, or take a bus. So they would be like, let's get a cab, and I'd be like, all right, well, I'll go with you. But I'd often just be like, why don't we just take the bus? And then they'd be like, well, it's easier to take a taxi. We're not paying for it, kind of thing. So my experience is pretty limited. And for commuting, I've never taken a taxi to work, because I've lived close enough, and mind you, I haven't gone to work much since I've had a kid, which changes up your I'm late now because of your kid, so that does change things. So who knows, maybe that would change. But I mean, I always try to find I've just been like, I bike in the rain and snow, and really bad, I take the bus. But so I've not used them much, and I still sort of think expensive. Like when you're like $15 one way, I'm like, man, I'm peeved when I get on the bus and it's $3.50. I'm like, $3.50. I'm like, yeah. And I just like, so $15. I understand that you're paying for convenience, and it's very convenient. Someone picks you up at your house and drives you to where you want to go in a car, like just for you. But it just seems like it's mostly not necessary. Granted, in the cases when you're like late, but generally it's like, if you're able to plan, and Crofton, I'm granting you total leeway. You have a crying baby at home, toddler, toddler going nuts. You're often going to be waylaid trying to like plan your commute, but that's also going to be a period of time, and probably at some point there'll be regular routine in your household when your kids are older, and you'll probably be back on the bus or biking or whatever. So it's like, it sounds like even for you, it's a bit of a stopgap measure for like, things are up in the air. It's convenient for now. But like, do you envision you'd continue to use it?
Oh, yeah, I totally envision when I use it, it's because I want situation. So it's like, I don't want to bike in the rain. Like, if there's a thunderstorm happening, like, I want to just get conveniently driven to work and not to worry about it. And I, like, as somebody that doesn't drive to work or commute every day in a car, like, I feel like, for the once in a while that I take Uber, it's not a big deal. And I honestly find it really, convenient. Pardon me?
Because
for taking the bus? Yeah, but see, that's it. So like, if you have a perfect bus route, in your house, then maybe that's not so much an issue. But if you have to like, walk a bunch or whatever, and through inclement weather and stuff like that, and you have the option of like, okay, I'm running late on things, this and that, plus the weather, plus that, it's a perfect Uber day. I'm just gonna take an Uber or take a taxi. Like I have no qualms. And also like while there's possibly people that got rich through taxidom, every taxi driver I've seen or Uber driver I've seen, nobody's making a killing here. So while it does seem like, oh yeah, it's $15 to get to work, it's fairly expensive, when you look at like all the maintenance work and all the shit they're putting into their cars, plus insurance, plus whatever, plus gas, they pick me up and then they get some money to take home, really isn't that much that they're, I'm sure, taking away. If everybody was making money hand over fist, I would be more annoyed about the cost of taking a taxi or an Uber, right? But I mean, the cost sucks. Like, it's much cheaper to take the bus or to get there by another means. But it wouldn't put me off. It wouldn't put me off paying it, especially at sort of my income bracket and age and stuff. I'm paying, like everything in life that I pay for now, and I throw money at a lot more things. I'm paying to get my time, right? So like, if I can get somewhere really quickly, and then I am getting time back that I could use for other things. Now, I like biking into work. I enjoy the commute and all that sort of stuff on a nice day or whatever. So, I mean, I'm getting something out of it. So, of course, I like that. I listen to my podcast. I go ahead. I don't necessarily like being in the bus. It's often not great, but at the same time, I don't hate it. And even though it takes way longer, I'm all right with it. But for the Uber and the taxi is the fastest. It just comes with the biggest financial cost. But sometimes I'm willing to pay that cost, and I will be in the future, I'm sure, if it leads me to getting my valuable time. That's that's how I would say it. What about you, Bo?
Yeah. Well, for my part, like the reason I use the taxi even is pretty much I'm running late for work and taking the bus, and it's not like I stay up late. I don't get up the best. I get up it's funny, I'm able to get up in time for a cab ride reliably. But for some reason, those extra 20 minutes to hit the bus, it doesn't work for me. And the bus, it's as close as possible. I still have to take 2 buses. And the problem with the bus is not the duration of the commute, but that they never arrive when they're scheduled. Never. 8:36, the bus is supposed to be here. I can take that one. Doesn't show up till 8:50 something. And it puts me behind. And then the connecting bus is all behind. And I don't, somewhere where the cab ride is literally 5 minutes of 10 at the worst. I don't want to spend 45 minutes busing and waiting for bus when I know it's 5 to 10 minutes. I think somewhere subconsciously that's the issue for me. So if I'm running late and it's 8:50, like it was this morning, I called a cab and drove over. $10. My ride is $10, which is actually pretty expensive if you consider how close it is. But it's pretty good. Now when you call in for a taxi, I don't know if you've done it for a while, you don't got to speak to somebody. Once they know your regular addresses, you can just press the number. Like, it'll be an automated voice. Just press 2, boom. And then it'll send you a text with the tracking. So you can actually see where the taxi is and how far out they are. So really the only reason to use the Uber, I think, over the taxi service is the cost, right? So I would be interested in looking at the cost, but my service has mostly been good, except for one guy who drove out to Nepean, and because I live on, well, I don't want to say where I live, but he confused the names and went all the way across town, and it was horrible.
Did you still have to pay that?
No, I called them back and said, this guy's, and he even called me on the phone. His English was not good. I'm like, I live in blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you live in blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, good Christ. And I just hung up and called the taxi. And like, this guy went to the wrong address. But apart from that, which I think could happen with an Uber driver, like, are they a caliber of person? So here's the thing. Taxi drivers are pretty rough. And it isn't even a race thing. I had a white guy. I remember when I lived in Quebec, this guy, I was late for work that day. And I was getting my cab in to get to work on time. I was taking a cab. Pretty sweet. And this guy was reading what is it he said? Reading a book? He started telling me about it. He's like, I like this book. And he's like, oh, it's about cannibalism. And he's like, cannibalism is pretty good. And I wouldn't mind trying to eat people. And he kind of laughed, but he didn't say it. He said it in a serious way. Like it, and he was just weird. And he gave off this weird vibe. Like he was like, I never want to be in a cab with this person again. And it's like, I think both, I don't know if this is like this in Uber, but it's definitely like this in taxi cabs. You get in with people that you're just like, oh my God, I despise this person. And sometimes they're really great, but sometimes they are scary as shit. And
it's much better in Uber because in taxis, like, again, they, at least in our area, of having that license, so they don't have to really go above and beyond in any sort of capacity. But like you are in Uber, you're giving them a rating, like a 1 to 5 star rating, and they want that 5 star rating, right?
Yeah.
If anything, like it could be annoying because you'll have, if you don't like chatting with your driver, you could be kind of like, I'm like, okay,
you're costing them stars.
Here.
Yeah.
He's like, well, like he'll.
But can you not say that? Can you just say, if you don't talk to me, dude, it won't affect your rating? So we can be.
I'm sure you could. I'm sure, and also he's giving you a rating. You have a client rating number, so like if you're a dick to your driver, he'll dock you for it, and then at one point they will stop picking you up, right?
Jeez,
they can see your profile and stuff like that, and so like if you're a dick to your driver, like you're giving them ratings, but they're giving you ratings.
What if someone's like sticks you up and is like, give me $40 or I give you a bad rating? Does that ever happen? I don't know.
No, they're also all really tracked by like the phone and the company and all that. So you see who. They always say when you get picked up by an Uber, check the photo on your thing and check the license plate number. Be sure it's the right car and the right person. The only one time early on did I have somebody who came to pick me up in the car that should be picking me up, but it wasn't the right person. He's like, "Oh, it's my brother. My brother's sick and all this." I'm like, "Sorry, dude, you're not the photo later." But that. That rarely happens. Yeah. The one thing I will say, because Bo, you talked on ethnicity, and I just want to mention this.
I didn't. I went around it.
no, but you brought it up. Like what I'm saying is
fair.
Taxi drivers, by and large, have a much higher, or they're much more likely to be of a visual minority than
persons of
other,
color.
A lot of other professions. And I think one of those, I don't want to say prejudices, but like beliefs that people have is that like, you're a doctor in your country and then you come over and you're driving a taxi here. And that's always said sort of derisively. But I guess there's something to be said for the ease of access or the easy employment for people that are coming to this country, that they have a sort of a skill that they can immediately start using to pay their bills and feed their families. Like I'd say that is a plus, or is it a minus? Because like, why is it all people of visible minorities? Are they getting underpaid? Is it a job that's exploitative? I don't know.
Well, it might go back to
Uber drivers too.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I've not been in Uber much.
I can only base on my, my, and I'd say with driver in our area, it's probably a 60-40. So 60 visible minorities, 40 whiteys, and then for taxis, it's definitely higher on visible minorities, except ironically, we're on the border between two provinces. So on the Quebec side, there's a high level of old French Quebecers as well. But on the Ontario side, much more.
They're the weird ones. I think they're the ones that scare me the most.
Yes. Absolutely. They're the ones that scare me the most too.
White people, like French white people, are scary.
Yeah. Oh no, we got a whitey.
But visible, like on the Ontario. A lot of visible minorities and stuff, and definitely like a couple of years ago when Uber big strikes like around the airport in particular, with regards to these folks who've seen their the valuation of their taxi licenses, which I think they're like over $100,000 or something.
No, like $250 they were.
Were they? Yeah, and they were taking it.
Yeah, for sure.
Taking a nosedive in value because of Uber and stuff. It's like, well,
but that's a false kind of like that's a silly market that developed because of regulation. Like in some ways I'm glad about Uber busting stuff like that. It's bad for the people who invested in them, but it's a contrived thing.
So you would buy it for that amount, but you would sell it at the end of your career too, right?
Yeah, that's what they did. Yeah, they buy it and you pay it. It's like a house, mortgage, but now it has value and you've sell it. But I'm like, I just think that's BS. But that's sort of a side topic. Well, one other kind of different tact I want to mention on this. So I don't take taxis very much. I take taxis a little bit. And having been in, some taxis when I worked, and having and probably the person, well, definitely among you two, who's driven by far the most. What I'll say is that without a doubt, the worst drivers on the road are taxis. No question. When I'm driving around and there's someone doing some idiotic, a U-turn in the middle of a tight street with parking on both sides where there's not even a room to do a 3-point turn, trying to do blocking, it's a taxi driver, like 9 times out of 10. And then so that has always irritated me because they're in their place of work on the road. Everyone else is not. They're commuting, they're going someplace. So they're on their place of work, and then they're just trying to get things done fast. So they're like constantly breaking the rules of the road. And lately I've been thinking more about driving generally, and I really think that in the future people will look back on this time and be like, what the fuck were people thinking to let human beings drive around these 3,000 pounds hunks of metal? How did they not always kill themselves? And the answer would be like, oh, they did a lot. They killed themselves a lot in these things. In the US, it's like 40,000 deaths a year on the road. And like, that's a lot. And I would be like, wonder how many are involved cabbies. But some percentage, certainly, at least of accidents, if you're just going to accidents.
Cabbies are probably more fender benders driving
yes,
urban centers.
I'd agree. Cabbies are more, I think smaller accidents than the ones like on freeways and stuff like that. And now the reason for this, I think, is largely because of distracted driving. They're looking at computers, their phones. Whenever have been in a cab, they're often talking to dispatch, talking to other drivers, looking at phones. Now there are now laws in the province we live in, and I think Quebec as well, about you can't use your cell phone when you drive. And now there's exceptions for these. I'm not sure if cabbies have an exception, but they certainly look at their cell phones. I saw one today driving and clearly looking at his cell phone. And now these are heavy fines. Now you can lose your license right away for texting and driving because people get killed because of this frequently. And so they're cracking down. And this is an industry that promotes people looking at their phone. And then I would say for the Uber, the worst part about this now is that it used to be that you're driving along, you're like, oh, there's a taxi. He's got the little hat on his roof. What? He's going to do something erratic. And often they do. Yeah. But now with Uber, you have erratic drivers in stealth mode because they don't have the little taxi hat on and they're driving around. Oh, someone's pulling a U-turn. What the F are they doing? Blocking traffic. It's for sure an Uber driver. And like I've noticed that this has risen a lot, and I see the Uber drivers pull up because my neighbor takes one every day. They pull up, they're looking down at their phone. It's like that's if a cop in theory sees you do that, you're losing your car that day. Now
almost all the Uber drivers have their phone. For me, like that's generally what it is.
They have
their phone.
Their phone, it's stuck to a thing on their windshield.
Yeah,
and they just hit some things. And
looking at a phone, like
I think it makes a difference. It's like if you have it in your hand and you're driving with both hands on the wheel, looking at a screen. I think it's better. It's not great, but it's better.
Yeah, it's not great.
If you have both hands on your phone.
I still think it's distracted. Like I've definitely noticed myself when driving, when I'm trying to fiddle with the radio, I'm like, I may as well be on my cell phone. Like if I'm really trying to find a station and scrolling, I'm like, I am not driving well right now, and I should stop doing this because I'm gonna crash. And I mean, this stuff is coming up. So taxis, like that's an inherent problem with taxis. On the other side of this, like it's clear convenience, and I think that's a major downside. That these people are constantly distracted, looking for fares, looking at devices all the time, and that's a danger on the roads. But it's a super convenient service, and I honestly could see in 20 years, maybe it'll be sooner, when driverless cars are like online. And that we just moved to probably a society of only taxi services.
Oh God!
And it'll work because it won't be human beings behind the wheels. It'll just be like order a car.
It sounds like a Bo Schwartz theory. This is like the hive mind, but the
taxi
version.
I think Mike's right.
Self-driving cars. I know they exist, but
Minority Report there with and it's like it's just these pods moving around, and it's like you'd get in a pod and it would just take you wherever. Like at what point we'll be in that sort of situation. One thing I just want to say about the driving though, because I have noticed this, because Uber drivers are much safer drivers than taxi drivers in my experience. I really think that the taxi drivers have a pressure put on them by the perception, like there's a meter that ticks in front of you that shows like how much money you're spending. And if the passenger feels that like this driver is taking their time, they're going the long way, they're not going to the destination as fast as they possibly could, then they could just they could feel this subtle pressure, like I've got to go faster, I've got to get there. I can't have the customer thinking that I'm trying to screw them. Whereas Uber works in a different way. You say where you're going to go, and they tell you exactly from where to where. They say how much it's going to cost, and you accept that before the ride even begins. So you know what the cost is, and you get in. So the driver is under no pressure to get you there faster or whatever, other than maybe securing a 5-star rating. But that isn't enough to make him want to drive like a maniac, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, that's an interesting point. Like, for sure, the Uber system is better that way. Absolutely. And I do find that there might be something, but when you get in a cab and you just get the base rate, like you get in and it's already like whatever, say $8 or something, and then the thing ticks up from there. Because I find that most taxis that I've been in, it's like they're racing wherever they're going, and I wonder if they're just chasing those base fares, because that's a more lucrative thing than the ticks on the mileage. Because sometimes I'm not going far, and I've been like, I'm not in a rush, dude. You can slow down or whatever. Like, and it's just like, I feel like they're just going nuts all the time, going like not even far, and they're like zooming around, and I'm just like, like I don't want to die in a taxi today. And I've not been on the Uber. I'm glad to hear that it's safer, because I think the driving is an issue sometimes. But you're gonna say something, Bo? I think.
Well, I'd agree with that. I wanted to add on. I don't know that it was mentioned, because you talked a lot about their distractions with the devices that they have when they drive, but there's a lot stacked up more than that. I just wanted to add into that, which was they work long hours. Some of them work at ungodly times of the day. You ever been drunk?
That's true.
And big time. They can work as much as they want, especially taxi drivers, but I assume Uber drivers as well.
Uber drivers are worse like that, because some of them,
they're overtaxed and fatigued while they're driving, which is never a good idea. And furthermore, when you do something 40 hours a week, you are desensitized. Like, if you drive occasionally, the stuff that happens on the road to you matter. You're sensitive to what's happening. And you see someone who drives all the time, like truck drivers are at risk for falling asleep while they're driving. Like I feel like when you drive a lot, you're at risk of just running off. I had the most precious bus driver. Now, I don't know if he was new to driving or he was new, and like he was a person of color, okay? And what was remarkable about this bus driver is everything was a visual show. If someone opened their door on busy Bank Street over here, and he'd be like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's just like his hands were up, and he's like, hey, I don't like that now. Like, he was not exaggeration. And then a bike would cut him off, and he'd be like, he's just like, everything was this giant visual show up at the front of the bus, and I'm like, this guy's paying attention to the road. In fact, he might be paying so much attention that he's distracted by his own reaction to everything. Because most people that drive are like, and they cut two people off crossing two lanes, which I've done in a cat. Like, I'm in the wrong lane and I need to get him to do the other thing, so he charges off the red light first and cuts across two lanes of traffic. There's a whole bunch of honking, and he's like, whatever. Yeah, actually makes like a whatever sign. So I feel like they're also very indifferent because they just spend so much time doing it that they like.
I think that's a super good point, because as someone who used to drive a lot, I was definitely, you get way more desensitized to it. And like when you get in these days when I don't drive nearly as much as I used to, that if I get on the highway and I for some reason I'm going like 120 or something, this is kilometers for anyone not on the metric system, you're doing that, it feels fast to me now. But there was definitely a time where it didn't feel fast, because I was driving like that all the time, because I was driving constantly. And so yeah, I think it's absolutely true, and I think that's why taxis end up doing those like liberties of like they're pulling U-turns, they're driving all over the place, they're cutting in because they're so accustomed to it and they're on the road, that they're just get more used to risk taking. Whereas when you're not driving often, you're gonna be more cautious. And I think that's generally good. There is something to be said about overcautiousness where it gets bad again.
Yeah.
Someone going 30 kilometers an hour, that can get dangerous too. But most people are not doing that.
But it's the indifference. But I don't. It's not like you hear that there's some major Like, I've never heard statistics like taxis driver deaths are per capita are like 50% more than the next highest death rate. Like, you don't need hazard pay to do taxi work. So maybe they're really good drivers because they do it 40 hours a week and they can afford to be indifferent. But when you're in a cab and that's what you're seeing, you're not very happy. And when you get cut off by a cab, you're certainly pissed, so.
Though that said, and another, like, to not just crap on taxi drivers, it is one of the most dangerous jobs.
I believe that.
Police officer. Because not only are they at risk of car accidents a lot, which are dangerous, they get attacked a lot and robbed and suffer physical violence, like almost more than any other profession. Definitely more than police officers. I heard this is a stat. So not only like not that, because I've been a little bit negative on taxi drivers, like they are working and they're not trying to get in car accidents. They're trying to do their job, and there's negative effects of that. But it's a tough job, and they have to put up a lot. And I do think that this is why, like, once we have automated cars and there's not people suffering in this way, it'll be so much.
You haven't thought through about automated cars, because what's going to happen is, because there's no driver in there, people are going to puke and shit in the car, and then it'll be your turn to take it, and it's going to be disgusting. Like, the fact that there's another human, there's a stranger in the vehicle, sort of human behavior is curtailed. But like, when there's no one in there and someone's coming home from their after party and they shit.
Is that what you do when there's no other human being around? You just like take a dump wherever.
No, but I've seen horrors. We all have seen horrors that get conducted by humans, and I think
you could put mechanisms in place to
there'll
stop
just be this dildo in the self-driving cab, and I'll be like, oh man, I want another one, and then I'll be on the phone and be like, we can't send you another one. You use this to go to work, or you don't get a self-driving taxi. Like, shit.
So guys, just this I find hilarious. So I didn't go to a work function tonight because I got 2 kids, but they're like, oh, come out. It's this guy's last day. We'll go to the bar and all that sort of stuff, right? Yeah. And I just got a text from my friend who I had sent before doing the show being like, how was the party? Is it over yet? And the response is hilarious. It's, I'm in a taxi now. Just so you know, the taxi driver is very weird. Man, is that a requirement when applying? And then I said, is he an old French Quebecer? And the answer was yes. So
and I just weird how? I'm curious. What's his weird?
I don't know. I'm doing the show, so I didn't follow up. But I did
asking. Is it a female, your friend, or a male?
A female.
Okay, so it's probably asking awkward, flirty questions.
Maybe.
Unwelcome. You have underwear at your house? What color are your underwear? It's like, I don't want to talk about this.
One more question for Crofton. Is it one of the employees that you forced to listen to this show? Because maybe they're live streaming and trying to get points.
I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you guys going out into my show?
Yeah.
But the two, I just wanted to say 2 things. One about the difficult job thing. I asked the last taxi driver who picked me up. One of the things I always ask is how many hours, like how's your shift going? Where are you in your shift or whatever? And it's useful info for me because 11 hours, and then I'm gone or whatever. Or you're my first ride of the day. It makes a big difference for my peace of mind. But the other thing that this guy was talking about, how, like, it's fairly lucrative picking up people from the bars in the evening, but he much prefers the 9 to 5 of like picking up people from work. And he's like, he just couldn't, he went back to picking up people at the bars again, and he just like, it's the worst. He says it's the absolute worst. I just, hate it. You guys are talking about the puking and shitting in the car. He's like, pretty much every night ends with somebody puking in my car, like it's like, that's how it goes. I'm like, man, that really does blow.
That's gotta be worse than like a nurse who changes bedpans and stuff. At least that probably clean, or they're organized. Like, just random projectile from a drunken, irritating person. Like, drunk people are not cute when you're sober and you've been up all night fucking working. Last thing you want is like, hey man, can you take me to my apartment?
Well,
shit, you got any napkins? I need napkins. Like,
I think as much as that annoyed him, what annoyed him more. So he was Pakistani, but he was born in Canada. But of Pakistani background and stuff like that. And like pretty much he's like every night, past a certain time, it's like go back to your country if you don't, like and he's just like so much stuff like that. So to Mike's point, it can be absolutely shitty. And another good thing about taxis I was thinking about and this is lumped in with them, is the taxis that pick up disabled people that have like sort of often setups to do so or whatever, and is literally the only way that these folks can get around, right? Like some urban centers have access to a select paratranspo type bus system, but not everybody has access to that by any means, so
yeah, I would say that in our city I think that's pretty good. If you're disabled, you can book with the public transportation. They'll come get you and all that. But yes, for sure, that is another positive aspect to that. And one other positive aspect, and this is kind of in some ways goes without saying, but it's like when you're in a city which is not your home city, the role of the taxi is extremely useful. Like if you're traveling abroad and you want to get someplace from like airport or a taxi, and you're just arriving, you're there, maybe you're there for a work function or whatever, and you haven't done your due diligence of like, oh, I want to do, or you want to take public transit, you just step off the airplane and say, can you take me to this is the address, which you don't know where the hell it is, and they're like, sure, and they just take you there. I mean, that's so useful. I mean, I was thinking that I've taken a lot of taxis overseas, especially in like developing countries where it can be hard to get around, and it's extremely useful. And I will say, it compound the fact that when you go to a country like Cambodia, which I've been to, where the driving is insane, and then you get on a motorcycle taxi. So now imagine taxi driver who are crazy drivers in a country where the base level of driving is insane. You think you're going to die instantly, which I did think that. But still, they get you there, and it's like otherwise, you wouldn't, you're stepping off a plane in a foreign country and you want to go someplace. A taxi driver is an excellent resource.
Sounds like the saints of the modern world are people who are like some of the people who are saints among us are the people who get us where we need to go in these crazy taxis.
I just wonder, like, and Mike, you were talking sort of the science, but like even in the current sort of situation, like, and this helps in formulating my verdict. What would you do, like, with no taxis, right? Like what would people, like, what would you replace them with if they just went away? Is that a good thing, a bad thing, a bullshit thing, or whatever? And for me, it's like, I can't think of, like, ideally down the road, I will have a pod that comes up. I swipe my credit card, it opens up, I get in, I say, take me to work, and
you're talking about not science fiction ideas, like the Star Trek teleporter gets invented.
Well, I'm talking about, like, a self-driving car that would come pick me up, and I would probably still cost me $15 or 15 galactic credits or whatever, and I would get with stuff to work. And I think if it was safe and all that sort of stuff and just did that, like, that would be nothing but a good thing, I would think. Sorry, Mike.
Well, I mean, I do think that, if they all disappeared, I mean, and if they all do disappear with the driverless car things, I really do think that'll be a net positive, and I think that will happen. I think it's just when. Is it 10, 15, 30 years or 50 years? But it will happen. And I think if you get every human being off the road, that will be a net positive too. But in terms of like right now, if there's no taxis, I think it depends where you are. But in especially bigger cities that have spent the time and have had the resources to develop good public transit, and I'm talking about cities with like good subway system, light rail systems, when they're good and well designed, you can get all over the place. And even
but then you'll choose to. You won't choose to use the taxi. Then you'll choose to use that system.
Well, that's it. But I mean, if the taxi didn't exist, you're like, if there was no taxi, and I think with some of those cities where the systems are good, and there are a lot of them, and in developing countries too. I remember I was in Kuala Lumpur, and it had an awesome like monorail system, and it's like you just got all over town on that thing. It was super simple to use. I think when I went to Chicago, the subway system went right to the airport, or I don't know if it was the subway, but like the light rail system, super convenient. You just get on the thing and go right downtown. I never took a taxi there. It was great. And I think of Montreal as a pretty good system for public transit. I never took a taxi there either. And Ottawa, where we are, which is sort of a mid-sized city, and it's developing that infrastructure, is in some ways more taxi friendly. Like, for example, the train station we have, they moved to like a non-convenient place, whereas you basically had to take a taxi to get there. Just right now, they're building a light rail station which will stop at the train station. And train's a good way to get to Montreal's a big city, or Toronto. The best way, I think, is train to get to either of those two cities. And now you can just hop on the public transport system, it takes you to the train station. You almost had to take a taxi before, or was very inconvenient on a bus. So I think there are ways that, but not all cities are capable of that. Probably if you're in a small town, like, taxis are very useful, probably. But
and then there's probably one dude that drives the taxi. One other negative I would say with the rise of Uber and Lyft, because I said a lot of positive about Uber and that sort of stuff, is that because everybody can do it and everybody sees there's a way to make a quick buck and it's not regulated, some of these big cities, I think of New York City and the island of Manhattan in particular, have had sizable problems where it's dramatically increased the amount of cars on the road, because they say, we're going to give these tourists. There's already tons of, every second car was a yellow cab in New York. And now with everybody being able to, like, drive my car onto the island, and it's just going to be pick up, drop off. It's congested, and they're having to develop like local regulations to figure their way out of it, because it's just too much.
Well, and that's sort of an unwritten problem of these cars that are constantly on the road. Like, the road systems are subject to wear and tear, right? And if you flood them with taxis or other cars that are just constantly driving around all the time, I mean, that stuff's all paid for by taxes. So there's sort of a hidden cost of these things too, where it's like you pay for your taxi, but also in taxation to kind of like the extra volume on the road, like that all gets paid for at some point. But I'm ready for verdicts. I don't know about you, fellas.
Yeah, I think we're getting there. We're about 56 minutes in. So if everyone's
but only 45 minutes of that was bank.
Okay, sure. I'll give that to you.
I know more about Wu-Tang Clan than I ever have.
I know a few more things about taxis and Ubers, actually, honestly. It was a pretty good discussion on a topic that seemed like, what is this going to entail? But it is now time to bring in our jury of farm animals. Bailiff, would you please bring them in here? There they come. Complete with song.
Order in the court.
Order in the courts. All right, who wants to deliver their verdict first?
I think I will.
All right, go for it.
I'm in some ways the least dependent on taxis, and I wish I could sort of split the difference between two verdicts in this one, honestly. But that's probably why I'm gonna fall on bullshit. Taxis are bullshit. And I really wanted to split the difference on good and bullshit, because I'm like, it's a bullshit leaning on the good. I'm like, I'm not that down on taxis. I mean, it is a valuable service. I think some of the flaws that come with it are flaws that are systemic ones, like driving is kind of stupid, and when we can get people off the roads and have automated cars, it will be better. So it's not all taxi drivers' faults, but I just think that they also cause quite a bit of havoc. They increase congestion. It's sort of a selfish way to travel. We didn't talk about that too much, but be like, oh, I am, I'm rich guy late for work. My name's Crofton Steers. Pick me up at my house in your solitary car and take me to my office right now. It's a very like prestigious way to get around. Next to limousine, being driven around a limousine. And sometimes we all need to do that, and that's okay. But like, to get on a bus of 50 people is a much more efficient way to get things around. Less efficient for you as an individual, better for the whole society and driving system. So I see why taxis exist. They're not going anywhere. I think when every car is a taxi and they're all driverless, which I think is not that far off, that will be much, much better for everyone. So bring on the future in this case. And maybe Bo could develop a romantic relationship with one of these taxis when it's not picking people up.
Wow.
That's a little throwback.
Yeah.
Bo fell in love with a robot. Why can't it also be a car?
I mean, if it's a transformer, then maybe.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
it comes home. It's like, I love you, Bo, and then you have like a lovely relationship.
Then
He wasn't gonna say lovely relationship. He's like, you could bang it. Basically, we can go out for a date at the Kentucky Fried Chicken, and it can transform into the vehicle that drives us there, and then have our
It
date.
could also drive you on the date.
Yeah.
God, it's hitting all post fetishes.
And we could have,
but you might not be able to have sex with it because
no,
it
you
won't
can
have
have
an
you can have
exhaust
sex with
pipe
it
'cause
while
it'll
it's
be
a car. You know how
electric car.
you know how you can have sex in the car. Like if you're driving, you might get a little something nice that'll make you run off the road. That could the transformer and a human symbiote relationship could just. I wonder what that's like.
Well, also the level of AI present at that time, that sure the algorithm will be able to pleasure you sexually while it drives too.
So after self-driving cars, we have self-pleasuring cars. This is like yeah, where the drive shaft angles down and you can drive it while. Anyways, I guess I'm giving my verdict.
What's
here.
your verdict?
Excuse me. I love the taxi service. It's funny because I went for a long time without using it, thinking it was a waste of money and not really doing anything with it. And going to be like, man, this is super convenient when you're in a pinch, so I kind of like it. There's a lot of negatives, so I'm sort of on board with the self-driving car future thing. I think it's kind of a cruel job to give to people. And I know people are happy just to have jobs, so they want to do it. And I think for some it must be worth it. It still seems like a shit thing. So I like the taxi service. I think the taxi job probably isn't great. So for that, I'm going to give it a bullshit verdict. Taxis in their current state are bullshit, but they could be great. They could be one of these. That's good. But they're one of these.
I'm surprised by this. Honestly,
I think that was a solid verdict, Bo. I enjoyed your rationale was on point.
Like nice. Just because he gave the same verdict as you don't need to fillet him.
No, he brought up he.
I don't need you to fillet me. I have a car for that.
Look, I'm just saying that Bo tends to skew good, and this would have been an easy one for him to just say good on, but he actually didn't, and I find that surprising because he doesn't even have his driver's license. I thought it was going to be an easy, like, oh yeah, these guys helped me out, so. Good. Anyway, look, before the chat room goes crazy, they've been asking for my verdict all day. I'm just going to start now and say that for me, taxis are good. And taxi service.
Wow.
And like, I agree that not everyone's going to love work job. There's a lot of people that might like that job. I don't, I can't speak to if it's a good job or a bad job or whatever. I can just say that like the service to me is one that's convenient, that's needed in certain places, especially rural places. I agree with Mike that there's a lot of negative both in how some of these systems are set up and all of that could lead you to skewing to sort of bullshit. I'm just approaching it from the other side where I'm saying like there's more positive from this for providing rides for people with who wouldn't be able to travel easily, people with disabilities and all that, to providing an employment possibility that's really accessible to people with that are either new to the country or that don't have all the certifications necessary to get a job but need to pay the bills. So there's a lot of things that you can find that are positive. I do agree with the reckless driving. I do agree with like the dangerousness associated with being a taxi driver and all that. There's a lot that I agree with. I just skew more on the positive side of things and think that it's a pretty good service. I do really agree with Mike and Bo on the concept of a future where like not only does nobody drive cars, but that the cars, the taxi services are completely automated and that sort of thing. I think that'll be great when that eventually comes. And of course, every country except certain countries that will be clinging to their desperate freedoms will adopt it, and then other countries will just be like, no, we're going to drive these cars into the ground. The end.
But it's true. That's how utopia is going to come, with the form of driverless cars is where it's going to start. But being that we're not there yet, maybe listeners, you have an opinion on taxis, taxi services, Uber, Lyft, and the like, and disagree with us or agree with us. We would like to hear from you. Send us an email, get in touch with us. You can go to our website, goodbadbull.com, and there you can find the ways to get in touch with us. Those include email, goodbadbull@gmail.com. Send us an email. We'd like to read it on the air, or you can
interject a little bit while you're doing that. Sorry, just interject. It can be an email about any one of our episodes. I know there's people out there you're listening to our nudism episode. That thing still gets downloads. So don't think just because it's
but they're not listening to it on this show.
This is the opportunity to say it. Just because just write it in. If it's about our first episode on suntanning, write it in. Just don't be shy.
Yeah.
Write in.
Okay.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Yes, write in. At Good Bad Bulls on Twitter. You could like us on Facebook, and if you haven't subscribed to the show and you want to, then do so. Google Play, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast, you can probably find us. And we do have a Patreon account. Wait, are we still doing the Patreon? What's the deal, Bo?
We took a little bit of a hiatus and we're changing up our things. We do have a Patreon, but it is still on hold for this month. We'll be resuming it again in August. So probably by the time you're hearing this, we'll be good to go on our Patreon. So patreon.com/goodbadbull is where you can find that. If you'd like to tip us $1 a month, that's all we're asking. And that helps support our dreams, essentially. The server costs first, and then we'll power
and
future
dreams second.
Yeah.
But always good to give a shout out to those who have supported us in the past.
We're very grateful for their patience, and we're very grateful for their support. And we have some awesome people who've supported us for quite a long time. So join them, won't you? Tip us $1 or more over at that site, patreon.com/goodbadbull.
Indeed. And so people, if you want to follow us people individually, Bo, where can people find out about all the various
you can find me,
things you're up to?
You can find me on the internet at twitter.com/Bo Schwartz, BeauschWartz. And you can find out all the things I do. We do this show. I do a show about Heroes of the Storm, a video game made by Blizzard. And I am a dungeon master on There Will Be Dungeons at therewillbedungeons.com. That's what I do.
And I would say
that's
best dungeon master around.
Thanks.
No question. And Crofton, where can people follow you?
They can follow me as I learn the history of the rap music and all the cutting edge Wu-Tang clanners by going on my Twitter feed at Crofton Steers. That's one word. Not all at once though. I don't want it to go down or anything.
And crash the Twitter. I'm at ML Hodgins, but not very active. So do something better with your time than follow me. Hey, Crofton, I have a question to you, for you specifically, because you said taxis were good. That was your verdict. How many? What is the number of children being killed by taxis for you to say that they're not good?
I'll answer that question with a. How many children have to be born inside of taxis for you to say that they're good?
Oh, wow.
None. I feel like no one's life was improved by being born in a taxi.
Well, I think maybe I would rephrase it to say that were used to rush to the hospital or wherever that the baby needed.
Or maybe better yet, how many children were conceived in a taxi after a late night bar pickup?
Yeah, so there could be conceived.
No, he's successfully derailing you.
Bo's example of get me to the hospital. My wife's about to have a friggin' baby. That's a good one.
I guarantee you there are cab drivers who look in their rearview mirror and they see some dude blowing some other dude in the back of their cab. He's just like, oh man, I got one of these.
Lots of that stuff happens. But no, I wanted to pull the child death one because for sure somewhere sometime a kid is being killed by taxi. I guarantee it. And it's very easy to just be Crofton, for me, one child is too
mortality
many for it to be good. But I guess you're a callous person.
Taxi.
I guess so.
You're my number is 100,000 children. Once 100,000 children are killed,
it's true. You could go back into old episodes and Steers saying, when trying to decide a verdict, if it's good or bad, I think to myself, does it kill me? And if it does, then it's probably bad. But taxis, I can't say that it could potentially kill me, but it's not a guarantee.
But it is definitely guaranteed that it has killed someone, and sometimes those people have been children. Anyways, you're a terrible person, Crofton. I'm glad we've established that concretely. Finally.
Why do you always have to end every episode with child death? It really is a downer.
Hey, I'm trying to avert it by not using taxis.
I can't find the stats. I've been looking. It's too bad.
It's one of those things like I don't know what the stats are. It doesn't matter. This is clearly.
There's a New York Post article from 2014. Dad sees son killed by cab in tragic crash.
Crofton, you sick bastard.
Taxi driver jailed for child death.
Oh man.
Yeah, I love that article. It's like taxi driver callously runs over child. A local man Crofton Steers quoted, "Taxi's a-okay with me."
He gave it a verdict of good on a good, bad, or bullshit.
Taxi, get to me to work on time.
There's like a dead child in the street, and you're like, "Crofton's late. Taxi, please."
You laugh, but that's our journalism culture right now. If someone says it has a hot take from 10 years ago, or makes a tweet or anything like that, and all of a sudden it's being used to scorch that person. When Crofton is Prime Minister of Canada, or I don't know, whatever minister, somebody's gonna dig up these good, bad, or bullshit episodes.
Of course they will.
And he's gonna be
I'm just enjoying like that taxi driver then gets like hauled into court for running over a child and leaving the scene of the crime, and Crofton's one of his supporting witnesses who comes in and is like, "Your Honor, that child may have just been killed, but let's face it, life goes on, and I was late for work, and that taxi was right there. I had to get in, and he took me to work, and he did a fine job. Let this man not guilty."
It's just funny how you can get it. It's a microcosm for you can get whatever information you want from. I just wrote, "Taxi driver helps deliver baby," and I got a whole bunch of hits right off, and I was like, "Huh." I'm like, taxi drivers are the heroes among us, but it's just like it's whatever sort of. That's what's interesting about this topic, and a lot of the topics. It's like you can go in with like whatever angle, you want. You're like
taxis are like taxis are like representation of God. They're the givers and takers of life.
Taxis. they take you where you need to go, be it heaven or hell.
All right. On that note, I'll find a place to end the show, you bastards.
All right.
That was fun. A quick thing. Can you do me a favor, Crofton?
Yep.
On your Discord, can you click the gear button?
Yep.
All right, and go to sound settings. Or voice video.
Yep.
Now, you have voice activity, right? Automatically determine input sensitivity.
Yep.
Can you turn it?
I also have my input volume to max.
Well, that might be why you're cutting out a little bit. Can you move the sensitivity down about 10 decibels?
Like it's 100%.
To the left.
You mean for the input volume, right?
Not volume. No, sensitivity. It's a green and yellow bar.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's at 40 decibels.
Yeah, lower it to like 70. Because there were points where some words would get cut off once your voice lowered, and I know it was that. So there's just gating, so when you're not speaking, it's not picking up ambient noise. So
I did it. Do I sound different?
Say something quietly.
Something quietly.
Perfect. You're good. It fixed it. I knew the exact solution to that problem. You might see it a bit on this episode. It wasn't too bad, actually, but just sometimes, because you're usually pretty loud and speak a lot and articulate and everything, and it's great. But every now and then you just get, and then it would cut it out. So, fixed. Hey guys, I successfully migrated you to Discord. I'm actually super stoked because I thought this day would never come.
I would like to point out...
I only found out about this day today. That happened. So.
That's how little I think of you and your technological prowess. Like, these guys won't be able to handle Discord. I was wrong.
It's whatever. It's like, I don't really care. That's the main thing. It's more like, my computer's old. I'm not buying a new one now because I don't have any money or job.
Yeah, but you can. I swear you could get a decent rig for like $100. Like you don't need to get a new.
I like how he keeps lowering the price. $20.
Someone in fact will pay you $20 to take away a better.
My last one was like $60. Like on Kijiji or something, you could find some. You don't need to buy a brand new thing if you're not into it. But your computer is aged aged.
Yeah, I'm more about the like this computer's still working, which I'm like great, it works. It serves my I haven't been doing much gaming, in the last few years, and I'm not likely to on computer again. I feel like a Nintendo Switch might be in my future.
Well, you should get that too, but like the problem with your laptop is that it's laptop technology, which by default is always worse than desktop technology.
Yeah. You need to get to the time. In the future, Bo, you won't have those monstrosities sitting under your desk. That's going to be gone in 10 years.
You'll need big cooling systems to keep... The reason why CPUs... I was reading an article about this.
Do you understand how technology works?
But the reason why CPUs haven't reached over a certain gigahertz, even though they've increased in the number of cores they have, is because of cooling. The CPUs melt, and that's a problem
They'll figure that out.
For.
They'll soon have like.
I mean, if I have if I can have a liquid nitrogen cooling system, then I could keep a super CPU. But no one can do that.
You just wait. And if there's one thing technology proves is that things get faster, smaller. It's going to happen. You won't need the monstrosity giant thing.
Will just
I like a laptop. It's small. It serves my needs.
Yeah.
But I will agree that a new laptop is way better than my 10-year-old one.
We should get you a solid desktop. A nice big black brick.
Desktops are horrible. You're living in the past. A whole room in your house with this giant... I mean, I know it's like your pod, your online living pod, but I'm not there. I don't want to devote a room in my house to sitting on.
You can hide it in a nice place. It doesn't have to be out there.
I can put a laptop in the drawer, and I don't have to look at it.
Okay. All right.
I don't know.
What's wrong?
I don't know what we're arguing about. Like it's like just get over it. Yeah, good show. Good show, guys.
It's just I'm on both of your sides, but I do feel that like I understand because Bo's point of view would be like you get way more for way less money, both in terms of quantity and performance. So frugal Mike would normally appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm trying to be like, I don't want to spend thousands of dollars. You do a podcast. I'd appreciate you getting a better computer for $100.
Yeah, no, it's true.
You just look, I don't mind. It's when I have a job again. I don't mind buying a new computer. I just don't want a big giant thing that
I know
my house I have to lend.
I know.
Just get a work computer. Once you start a job, just actually don't do that.
So if it's worth it to not have a big thing, then spend a couple $1,000 on a new laptop. Do that.
Look, yeah, I don't mind spending because look, I paid $1,000 for this laptop 10 years ago. It's lasts a long time, It was money well spent as far as I know.
You know what? You're absolutely right. It's been 10 years, that you've had that computer.
That's $100 a year if you think about it in terms of your per year use. If you rented it,
that's crazy. That is good. You should feel good about that. Now get a fucking new computer.
It hasn't broke down. It hasn't had viruses and stuff. And I will say it's lasted longer than any. I will say this for the Mac, it is annoying in a lot of ways. Its user stuff, I don't think is better than Windows for sure, but it has lasted. Any other computer I had has been. I'm not good at doing debugging and all this shit. It has been just a piece of garbage after like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, for sure. I see that.
You're gonna love.
And
this
Bo's
too.
like a techie. He loves to get in there, he's defragging all this shit. He's got all this virus software. He likes that. I hate it.
He's just fragging all his shit. It's all he does this stuff. My computer's 12 years old, believe it or not. I'm due for a new one too.
Oh, it's true.
But you
actually,
put new parts in it. That's a misnomer.
I've upgraded parts, but a lot of them were gifts.
Not much.
Like Scott sent me the video card that I have.
That was about it that I know of. And like I will say though that
I upgraded the power supply.
That is kind of crazy. The fact that you guys have both had computers that long.
I want to pop off some money real soon to get myself I'm getting like the dream PC.
If I were you, Bo, like I would absolutely. If you have disposable income, it should go like this. Is what you do. This is your thing. It's like your business practically. You should do it.
I'm looking into getting it, but it's just I've had moving expenses taking a bit of time, but we'll get there.
Right.
Yeah.
Once you get there.
Yeah, once I get there.
It all works fine.
But yes, I've had mine for 12 years, and I probably paid close to what you paid. It was $1,000 or so, $1,200 maybe. So that's $100 a year for my computer. Not bad.
Good value.
So when you're playing The Witcher 3, does it look like total ass?
No, it looks fine. It's not at max graphics, but I was able to enable the hair tech. I've got decent texturing on it.
Hair.
Yeah, the NVIDIA. There's NVIDIA hair tech. It's
Of
like
course.
enable, disable, and it makes the hair flow
Gerald,
like crazy.
Your character grows his beard like over different days.
Oh, so that
like,
does happen, right? I wasn't sure if I
yeah.
was seeing things. Yeah, you have to shave him or it grows.
He
open.
grows his beard.
He looks awesome when his beard is grown. He's just like looks like a woodsman. He's like.
Can you shave it?
Yep, you can go to a barber and shave it and get a haircut.
But cool. if you do shave it, it will grow back. I think like I may have decided
your hair grows in
sure.
completely, like because if you have shaved sides of your head, your hair will grow in too. I think.
I know it's not for you necessarily for you, Bo, but the Witcher may be my favorite game of all time. The more I think about it, I'm just like
I see the appeal of the game. I want to get back to it. It's just I'm busy. It's an involving game, and
oh yeah.
And I enjoyed it, and I agree with you that this is like an incredible gaming experience. I just don't have. It's like I don't have time. I can't appreciate a game like that playing it for 30 minutes. Like
no, dude, it's like it's like 100 friggin' hour game. No, I get it. It's just that for me it was like I don't know.
It's like looking at a painting. Like if you could like games are always cool graphics and stuff, but when you're wandering in the world, it's just I'm looking at a painting. Yeah, and it was moving painting. It's amazing. It's so beautiful.
It's just like what do you call it? It's the third game, and I played the first two, and I didn't finish either of them.
No, I played 15 minutes of both. They look like ass.
And I was like, man, all the hype for this one. I'm like, I don't get it. And then I got it, and I was like, holy shit, this game is amazing. Yeah. It took me like I had to get through White Orchard, the beginning area. I was like, I don't get what all the hype is about. And then when I left that area, I was like, I get it.
Like but how many hours did you put in that game?
I don't know because it doesn't necessarily track, or like I played it on PlayStation, not on PC. I didn't have a PC that could run it, or if it did, it would have looked like Bo's version, and I don't do that. But I'm super presumptuous. I'm like, I'm a graphics whore, bitches. But no, I just Bo and I were doing the exclamation mark at the time, and it was almost hilarious because every episode of this weekly show we would do, Bo would be like, yeah, I'm playing Heroes of the Storm, and I'm like, yeah, I'm playing The Witcher, and it went like forever, and I was like, yeah, still playing The Witcher, it's still really good, like
yeah, we couldn't really maintain a conversation. It was always a monologue. It was like, I'm playing Witcher, here's what's awesome, and I'd hear about it, and vice versa.
Yeah,
but the
problem was I never finished those games though, and I finished that one.
Yeah, I could. It's a huge the world is just gigantic.
Like it's funny because even like lately I have been having a little bit of nostalgia around video games, and I was like, but I'm like I just cannot find where I would find the time because like a game like Witcher seems super appealing to me, and I remember the days of my youth where I had like. No partner, no kid.
Yeah, like I know you've played.
I would be like, yeah, I would sink right into it. It would be good times. I'm like, I know
you've played RPGs and stuff, and because it reminds me a lot of Zelda in the fact that you wander around the world and do things.
I love that stuff.
It's a Zelda style game, but also an RPG game. It's just you're one dude. To me, Zelda is the closest. Zelda mixed with a traditional role playing game, and I know you've played both. And
you would love the Zelda on the Switch, just for the record.
Sure,
but,
Zelda's also good, but it's time. Like honestly, like, and it's funny because I'm the one on the show that you both make fun of for spending way too much playing games, and literally, I can't find time to play games, and I find time to play way more games than you guys do.
And you don't have a kid.
I have no kids.
That's why I'm like, I don't understand how you and like Ryan Murphy. That man's existence boggles my mind because whenever I see him online, he's always playing games. Like, what is happening in that household? Because I cannot make that happen. There's no way.
I think so. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to find.
I just finished playing.
See you, Monica. Go hang out with Azeroth. Thank you for being here.
I just finished playing God of War on so they did a sort of a sequel to God of War, but it's also a restart of the series. On PlayStation 4, and I'll be honest, like it was being hyped for like a good year or two that they were working on this, and I had no interest, and I played the God of War games on PS2 in the time.
I played the original one way back.
I really liked them. Like we bought, I bought the second one together and then shared it or whatever and stuff. But I just thought like when I thought back at God of War, I was like, I'm not into this anymore. Like, it was just like, it's just like, I'm Kratos, I rage. And then it was just like killing gods or whatever. And it was not, there's nothing like now games have evolved to such as like the Last of Us type games in The Witcher. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't see myself being that into God of War. But then the reviews started rolling out and it was like 10 on 10, 10 on 10, best game and blah, 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 blah. So I was like, fuck. So I bought it and I just finished it like after, it's been a good month or so. It's really fucking good. Like I am just, it's so good. And at first I was like, yeah. But then it gets its hooks in you, and it's set. So you know how the core concept is, Kratos is the ghost of Sparta, kills all these Greek gods, right? Well, anyway, he escaped in between the end of the old God of War games. He decides to leave essentially whatever that world is, and enters the world of Norse gods. And he's
to kill them.
No, because that's the whole thing that's kind of interesting, is like he's realized that vengeance gave him no satisfaction. He marries this woman, and you have a kid, and they had a kid, and the game opens with like the wife has died, and Kratos and her burning her ashes, and then the goal is to take her final wish had been to take her ashes and spread them at the highest point in the realm, and so like it's to get to the top of this mountain and stuff, and but needless to say, things take a turn. It gets complicated and all that. But the relationship between Kratos and his scrawny son is really interesting, and his disappoint. And it's funny because it's clearly with The Last of Us and it's games being made by dads now, and you can totally tell. And this is like the ultimate dad game. Like Kratos is like, that dad that gives you nothing back emotionally. He calls him boy all the time too, which is always hilarious too. He's like, boy, go get that, or whatever. Like, but it's just as the world expands and the work that went into, and it looks fucking amazing. Like the graphics are insane. And he has this Leviathan axe instead of his blades of chaos that he had in the other games. Is the Leviathan rather? Sorry. And it's just, it's so it's so satisfying to use. Because the God of War games were always great on combat, and I had kind of forgotten that. But man, it feels so good, and it does the Mjolnir thing where like you hit you throw it off, and then like you hit triangle and it comes back, and like you just see his hand and then go, and when it hits, it's always satisfying. You're like, oh yeah, now you guys are fucking dead, but yeah, it was way better than I thought, and it opens with like after the intro and stuff, like the thing that sets the plot off is one of the gods comes knocking on the door and of their hut, and he's played by the guy who plays Dickie Bennett in Justified. I'm not sure if you watched that, or
really? Yeah.
Faraday in Lost. Have you?
I know Dickie Bennett. It's the skinny one, right?
The skinny one.
Yeah,
in Faraday and Lost, they're the scientist, sort of neurotic guy. Anyway, but he's like he's really like a pretty big presence. But then they get him and Kratos get into this fight, like, and it's mostly quick time events, like just quick, but it's the closest to the Dragon Ball Z fight I've ever seen, like in a video game, and it's just insane. They just start throwing each other through mountains and all this. Anyway, it's just like it's pretty good, and then it just like from there you go on to separate advantage. The god? Well, I can tell you, but it's a spoiler. Like, it's not.
What do I care? I'm not gonna play it.
Okay, his name. Well, in the god's name, and they're all based on real gods, right? Like Baldur is the god.
Yeah, I know. Baldur.
And Baldur is his lot in life is that essentially that Freya has made it so that he cannot die or take pain, and so that's it. Like that Dragon Ball Z fight ends with Kratos. Like Kratos has got him in this headlock, and he's like, just do it, you want to or whatever. It's like, it's all you do, and then Kratos is like, bam, and you snap his neck, and then he you know, like after a zillion things, and then of course he's not dead. Like he comes back, and there's no way of killing him or whatever, or is there? And then even if you can, should you, and all this. Anyway, there's a lot. You go to different realms, like you're in Midgar, which is the main sort of Earth realm, but then you're able to. There's this place in the middle where you can change the realms, and unlocking realms is a big deal. And Odin is locked Asgard and a couple of other realms. What's funny is Odin and Thor and all the gods are essentially huge assholes, and that's, in Marvel universe they're all presented as these kind of like they're heroic, but like in Kratos hates all the gods, as is well documented from previous games, but he is also a god himself because he became the god of war. But there's a god of war in Norse mythology as well, Tyr or whatever, and so like there's a lot to it, and it looks stunning. And on my TV it supports HDR, which pops the colors and stuff. Holy shit, like I look at it sometimes, but it's funny, no matter how good graphics look, at one point you desensitize all the time. It doesn't matter. Like, although God of War has areas, or you go into a new realm and it's like, holy shit, this is amazing, but then you walk around for a bit, you're like, all right, I got it, like you're never marveling nonstop. Like, no, sometimes
that's why you gotta get back and play some Overcooked 2 when it comes out, because you know what, you get desensitized to shitty graphics.
You realize your description of this game is lost on Michael completely, right? Like,
no, I don't think so.
Good. He said all this stuff about the game, and he's like, Overcooked 2.
Bo, you never played Overcooked. It's so much fun.
Okay.
But yeah, God of War has the thumb candy thing going, though. Like that I always talk about. Like, it just feels good. Like you're playing it, and you're like, oh, this feels good. Like the games that feel like that or not. Because I like The Witcher. It has way better combat than most games like that. But you're not like, oh, this feels insane.
I would say the combat's kind of, it's all right.
But like, name a game like that with better combat than The Witcher. Not Skyrim.
A third world. Well, the stealth combat is definitely better. That's how I play the game. Like combat. No, I don't like Skyrim. But
Skyrim has janky ass shit combat. The Witcher, you could actually like it. I can't think of one big open world game like that had as good combat as The Witcher. I'm not saying The Witcher is God of War or Batman or anything.
Right. Actually, I know which one had pretty good combat. That was Kingdoms of Amalur. It was a third world.
Yeah, but that game, okay, I'm willing to give you that. That was based kind of on the combat of God of War.
I know it's stretching, but like, it was a well-regarded, well-received game.
Okay, I'm going to interject. This is getting a bit deep for me. I'm going to go to bed.
Croft, to take a breath. Because, I think we went into the...
Bye-bye. Nice talking with you guys. It was fun.
All right, let's say bye to the live stream. Live stream, thanks for hanging out.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, live stream. Go play God of War.
Yeah, it's nice having you here.
Or Overcooked 2, best game ever.
Thank you.
It's not out yet, you dumb.